Hakeem Olufemi Gbajabiamila. God bless you all. I give thanks to God Almighty, by whose grace we have returned here to the Green Chambers.
House resumes after party primaries amidst call for members to imbibe lessons arising from the implementation of the Electoral Act.
To extend the deadline of the continuous voters registration.
And House urges INEC to extend voters registration deadline. You're on to House Tickets, a weekly education on the processes of lawmaking and legislations by the House of Representatives, Federal Republic of Nigeria. Many thanks for joining us. The lawmakers resumed plenary sitting Tuesday, the 14th of June 2022, after 2 months to conduct their primaries. As such, updates on activities during plenary for this week make up part of our program. And in continuation of our special series to mark 3 years of the Ninth House, which we started last week, we have an interview with one of the principal officers in the Ninth House. Stay tuned for the full package when House Ticket returns from this short break.
The entire purpose of the legislative agenda is to direct our legislative resources and efforts in a coordinated effort to ensure the well-being of the individual in a life of safety and freedom. That is a high ambition, but it's well worth the effort. We have passed landmark legislation to fix our oil and gas industry, reform the police, and reorganize the corporate administration system in our country. We have considered and passed meaningful legislation that impacts all areas of our national life.
Thanks for staying tuned. Upon resumption on Tuesday, 14th June 2022, the Speaker, House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, declared the break over with a welcome address, in which he acknowledged the need for such breaks as being a mandatory practice in democracy, where elected lawmakers at intervals return to the electorate to give account of their service and seek for a renewal.
This periodic renewal of the mandate gives democratic government legitimacy. It allows us to act in the name of the people who elected us. And it ensures that we conduct ourselves in office knowing that we will give an account of our decisions and the priorities we choose to pursue in due course.
Speaker Femi Gbajabiamila added that no one is defined by the outcome of any election, but rather by the quality of service, content of character, and passion of their convictions. He urged members to put aside their feelings about the recent electoral experiences to focus on serving the mandates they still have.
I enjoin you all to set aside your feelings about recent electoral experiences to focus on serving the mandate we still have. Whereas in the past, the start of the electoral calendar marked the end of governance as a priority, that will not be the case in the 9th Assembly. Our term in office does not end till next year. Until the moment it does, until the last minute of the final hour, we will do the people's work and serve their interests. That is the oath we swore and the commitment we will live up to, come what may.
Speaker Femi Gbajabiamila said the Ninth House of Representatives will continue activities to ensure that the legislative agenda is fully implemented.
We will also continue activities to ensure full implementation of the legislative agenda of the Ninth House of Representatives. This includes consideration and passage of relevant legislation and other stakeholders' engagement and outreach efforts.
On a final note, Speaker Femi Gbajabiamila said that the success or failure of the Ninth House will not be the result of the actions of any one individual, but rather they will be judged on the sum of their collective efforts.
We will be judged on the sum of our collective efforts, and therefore we are in this together. Let us continue to dedicate ourselves to the arduous work of nation building. Let us remain steadfast in doing those things intended to make gentle the life of man in this world.
Following the address by the Speaker, the House adjourned plenary for that day. This was in honor of one of the lawmakers, Representative Ekpeong Basi from Akwa Ibom State, who passed away during the break. Prayers for the repose of the deceased were said.
We will not record any more death till the end of the night assembly in the name of Jesus.
During plenary of Wednesday, 15th June 2022, quite a number of motions and bills came up for deliberation. We will take a break, and when we return, a highlight of these activities will come your way. Do stay tuned.
Plenary for Wednesday, 15th of June 2022 was characterized by matters of urgent public importance. The first, moved by Representative Toby Okechukwu, was on the need to investigate the endless raging fire at the premises of Caritas University in Enugu State. Representative Toby Okechukwu stated that the fire, which has been burning for weeks, has claimed a life.
The unending fire, suspected to be fueled by methane gas at the premises of Caritas University, Amojinike, Enugu State, for over 22 days. The House further notes that the fire, which has claimed one life, reportedly started on Tuesday, May 24, 2022, after borehole drillers engaged by the university struck a gas belt after about 1,242 feet below the earth.
The lawmaker called on the Ministry of Petroleum, the NNPC and its subsidiaries to bring the fire to a halt, amongst other resolutions. The motion was voted on and adopted.
Those in support, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. Ayes have it.
This motion of urgent public importance.
Representative Adelegbe Timeyin also moved a motion on the need for justice for the killing of innocent worshippers at a church in Owo, Ondo State recently.
On Sunday, 5th day of June 2022, at about 12 noon, while the Holy Mass was going on, there was a deadly attack carried out on St. Francis Catholic Church located at Owalua Street, about 200 meters away from the palace of the traditional ruler of Owo, the Olowo of Owo Kingdom, in Ondo State, by government suspected to be Fulani herdsmen. On the innocent congregation, with the use of improvised explosive device, after which the defenseless people were being shot indiscriminately.
He called on the House to condemn the recurring acts of violence in Ondo State and also called on the Nigeria police to bring the perpetrators to justice. He further called on relevant relief agencies of government to come to the aid of the victims of the attacks, as well as on the federal government to declare a state of emergency on insecurity and flush out bandits using forest reserves nationwide as hideouts. The prayers were adopted even as the House observed a minute's silence in honor of the victims of the attacks.
The conduct of the police commissioner.
Still on motions under matters of urgent public importance, Representative Gideon Goroki moved for a motion on the need to investigate the attack and killing of peaceful indigents of a community in Adamawa State on June 8th.
The people of Boshkri were attacked at night, and about 3 people were killed. Houses were burned. Even as I'm talking now, many of them are sleeping in primary schools and in churches.
In his prayers, Representative Goroki called for the investigation of the incident to bring justice to the people, at the same time asking for the redeployment of the Inspector General of Police immediately out of the state, as residents are no longer comfortable with his conduct. He further called on the Northeast Development Commission and the National Emergency Management Agency to come to the aid of the victims. The prayers were adopted.
Take now, please say aye. Those against, say nay. Ayes have it.
From the order paper came a motion by Representative Benjamin Kalu on the need for the Independent National Electoral Commission to extend the deadline for continuous voters' registration machines across the country. The motion generated robust debate.
To extend the deadline of the continuous voters registration, deploy additional staff and voters registration machine across the country.
This is the second time we are moving a motion for an extension, which I agree it should be extended. I agree. But we should equally be mindful of the fact that when we suffocate the timetable of the Electoral Commission, if they fail tomorrow, we'll complain.
We have sensitized people enough to go to get their PVC, and many people are coming to get their PVC. Even the elderly, the youth, and all kind of people, including the people living with disability. So I'm even saying that INEC should provide more machines, because what they have now, one per local government, is not just enough.
INEC is just a nearby neighbor to us here. We have a committee oversighting them, Mr. Speaker. I want to add that the House mandates the committee oversighting them to liaise with INEC.
INEC has an event, which is election, and that's why they have a terminal date. So I don't think the comparison works. You know, they are working towards an event, and there has to be. And if you look at it in international crimes, they have a time when, you know, you close registration.
It's not by operation of law, it's by operation of their guideline. And it must reflect our environment and what is happening and the willingness of Nigerians to register.
The motion was voted on and adopted.
Ayes have it.
On resolutions, the House resolved to urge the INEC to extend the voters' registration deadline by an extra 60 days from June 30th, 2022 to enable Nigerians to register, mandate the Committee on Electoral Matters to engage the INEC to examine and proffer solutions to the shortage of registration machines and manpower, and also deploy an additional 30 voter registration machines in each local government area, amongst others. The House also debated a motion on the need to secure the release of the kidnapped Abuja-Kaduna train passengers and other Nigerians held in captivity in the country. The motion was sponsored by Representative Bamidele Salam alongside 10 other members of the House.
In the last 10 years, terrorism, banditry, kidnappings, and other forms of violent crimes have become a security epidemic in different parts of the country. Alarmed that, according to the International Center for Investigative Reporting, which reported that since 2018, there has been a rapid increase in kidnappings from 987 victims in 2018 to 1,395 in 2019. Also alarmed that the figure of kidnapped persons increased to 2,865 in 2020 and 5,287 in 2021.
The Speaker stressed the need for the House to collectively put pressure on the security agencies to ensure the freedom of the remaining kidnapped victims.
A lot of them are going through some very serious trauma, and I think we need to, as a House, we need to come together and put pressure on our security agencies to get the victims out.
The House resolved to urge the federal government to expedite action to secure the release of the remaining 51 Nigerians kidnapped in the Abuja-Kaduna train attack and all other Nigerians held hostage by bandits across the country. Urge the federal government to offer assistance to the family members of the kidnapped persons and mandate committees on army, national security and intelligence to ensure compliance. Representative Sergius Ogun, on his part, moved a motion on the need to ascertain the total number of personnel trained and recruited by the Nigerian Army from 2017 to 2021.
The House is aware that in a bid to boost its military strength, the Nigerian Army has, in the past 5 years or more, conducted a series of recruitment exercises for persons desiring to be enlisted into the Nigerian Army. The House is worried that despite several personnel recruitment exercises conducted by the Army and the huge financial resources appropriated by the federal government for its equipping, the Nigerian Army ranks 35th in the World Military Strength Index.
Lawmakers debated on the motion.
The World Bank even gave an information on it. Today, Nigerian Army personnel, including the paramilitary, stands at 223,000, the fourth largest in the whole of the continent.
And the motion moved by Honorable Sergius, he still referred the motion to the committee. It's not to the public. And not that the Chief of Army Staff is summoned by the House to come and explain in public, but to the committee, no matter how sensitive it is.
The purpose of this motion, as spelled in the order paper, is not only to establish the total number of the Nigerian Army personnel that we have. When you refer to the last paragraph in this motion, the part of this motion is interrogating why Nigeria is being lagged behind in the ranking order of global firepower, despite the budgetary appropriations that this National Assembly is dishing out to the military year in, year out.
We are vested with the responsibility of investigation, and this motion is intended to investigate recruitment exercise, not from when the Nigerian Army was established, but a specific period from between 2017 to 2021 recruitment.
It should be recruited and trained, because you cannot train somebody without recruiting that particular person. What I'm trying to say in a nutshell, if we go by this shows there are people that have not been recruited by Nigerian Army but have been trained. And one can qualify that by having illegal checkpoints across the country.
The issue of Army in this country is not limited to issue of recruitment and training. What we are having now, Mr. Speaker, sir, the issue of how much are they maintaining those being recruited and trained at the battlefield and where they are working. Issue of their allowances, when money were being budgeted for, appropriated for in the House, are they properly applied or executed at their own end? This is one thing we should know.
It would be unfortunate to say that as a chairman of Army in this House, that we don't know the number of personnel in the Nigerian Army. It's not true.
It's not.
We have the numbers. But the truth is that it is not wrong, because we just passed out about 5,000 recruits just last week, Saturday. I was there in the depot. So it could go added to the number that we have. And it's also not wrong if he wants to have us to get the detailed number. Because even in the civil service, where people know the number of civil servants, you still find when they are going to pay salaries, they will say, okay, let us do some kind of table payment to ascertain the number of people that are on, because there are fake people coming around. So if there is a call for us to know the number and they need it from the committee, Mr. Speaker, we are going to oblige that.
At the end of the debate, the House resolved, among other things, to invite the Chief of Army Staff to appear before the Committee on Army and provide details of the total number of personnel trained and recruited by the Nigerian Army in the past 5 years and details of the current numerical strength of the Nigerian Army. Mandate the Committee on Army to ensure compliance with the resolution and report back within 4 weeks for further legislative action. Meanwhile, several bills were taken for first, second, and third readings during the week under review, most of which are bills seeking the establishment of tertiary education institutions.
If you just joined us, you are watching House Tickets coming to you on the NTA Parliament. Before the break, we brought you activities from the Green Chamber of the National Assembly. But like I mentioned when the program started, we had an interview with lawmaker Alhassan Ado Doguwa, who is the House leader, to discuss pertinent issues on the 3 years anniversary of the 9th House of Representatives. Representative Alhassan Ado Doguwa described the journey of the 9th House since inauguration as a success story, particularly with the emergence of the Speaker of the House, Right Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila.
Our journey all along has been a success story because right from day one, The history of every parliamentary institution is always determined or established at the onset when for instance, you come to establish the leadership of that institution. And I think the good story about the 9th House of Representatives started with the emergence of Right Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila as the leader and the Speaker of the 9th House of Representatives. I think this was one history that you just cannot ignore in the history of Nigeria's parliamentary democracy. You have someone who for long has been yearning to become Speaker. Someone who has for long been on the records of Nigeria's legislature, who has been very actively involved in the evolution, in the development, and of course in the promotion of parliamentary politics in Nigeria.
Lawmaker Ado Dogwa said that the 9th House has been able to consider not less than 250 bills in every legislative year. He also spoke on executive-legislative relationship.
In virtually every year, under the guidance of Right Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila, with the special committee he has also established to work under his office, to be able to ginger and encourage members of the House of Representatives to come up with sensitive and very operational and proactive bills. We have been able to produce or to consider, not finally considered, but at least we have been able to consider at least not less than 250 bills every legislative year. This is unprecedented. We've never had it so good. And because of the good relationship we have with the government of the day, under the leadership of Muhammadu Buhari as the head of the executive arm of government, we have always had our bills assented to, except in very few cases, like the recent Electoral Act amendment, which has to do with the issue of statutory delegates, the issue of gender and what have you. You can understand that we have always had it so well with Mr. President.
Moving on to the challenges, Representative Ado Dogwa spoke on the issue of turnover during elections.
Nigerians may think I'm being funny, but I'm not funny. I'm being very honest. Is this issue of turnover during elections. Turnover. At any time, Nigerians have an opportunity to elect members of the National Assembly. You find them having the zeal to always bring new members. I am not against any new member, but an institution like legislature requires what we call institutional memory. An institution like the House of Representatives, as big as it is, requires